Welcome to another Moments with Mike as we continue our study in the book of Ecclesiastes. And we've reached the end of the 9th chapter, but interestingly enough, we're going to actually begin in verse 13 and go through verse 4 of chapter 10. One of the most primary places that you see the use of word pictures is in the wisdom literature. Also found for us in Genesis 49 and 50, where the patriarch begins to prophesy over his children, and he uses vivid pictures with his words that portray, if you will, a future that God had for them. I love the end of chapter 9, though, because it is a vivid use of illustration about a poor wise man and a strong king. And the story is very simply that there is a city besieged by an army. We see that in verse 14. It may have had some historic reference for Solomon, but in any event, the picture in this story is that there is a city that's being besieged by an army. And the players, or the principal characters in this story, are a poor wise man and a great king, found for us in verses 14 through 15. Let's read. There was a little city with few men in it, and a great king came against it and besieged it, building great siege works against it. But there was found in it a poor wise man, and he by his wisdom delivered the city. Yet no one remembered that poor man. But I say that wisdom is better than might, though the poor man's wisdom is despised, and his words are not heard. The words of the wise are heard in quiet. Those are better than the shouting of a ruler among fools. Wisdom is better than the weapons of war, but one sinner destroys much good. And the principles go on into the first 4 verses of chapter 10. But allow me, if I can, to talk to you a little bit today about the principles that this story bring to light with respect to both wisdom and folly. The first is this: wisdom is better than strength and the weapons of war. Throughout Solomon's description of wisdom in the book of Proverbs, we see over and over again that it's said to be better than rubies, better than gold, better than silver. It should be that which occupies the main pursuit of our life, is to become more wise than to try to accumulate great wealth. Principle number 1 here is wisdom is better than strength and the weapons of war. We find that in verses 16 and verses 18 of the 9th chapter. The second is wisdom may be despised, unheeded, and forgotten. Wisdom may be despised, unheeded, and forgotten. Again, a reference to Proverbs. And Proverbs chapter 1, the latter part of Proverbs chapter 1, where wisdom is personified as a person who is pleading with those that are around the sound of their voice to listen to what is being said to them. But it's spurned, it's rejected, it's ignored. And when that happens, there are consequences that come from wisdom not being heard. It's also gratifying to know, though, that when you and I do act in wisdom, even though there might not be an immediate result for us, God is not so unjust as to forget the works that we do, especially as we serve him and serve others. Hebrews chapter 6, verse 10. Third, wisdom operates in a different manner than folly. Wisdom operates in a different manner than folly. The best place that you could see that is in James chapter 3. James chapter 3, verses 13 through 18, which so vividly and brilliantly contrasts the wisdom of this world, which is natural, fleshly, and demonic, and the wisdom which is of God, which is first of all pure, then peaceable, and full of good fruits, and unwavering. There's a tremendous contrast there in that passage that you would do well to read and reflect upon. The fourth thing we see about wisdom and folly in this great story of Ecclesiastes 9 going into chapter 10 is this: The folly by one can destroy the good of many. The foolish actions, the foolish decisions, the foolish speech of one can actually destroy the good that many have done. That's really picked up for us when Jesus said in one of his pivotal teachings that a little leaven leavens the entire lump. That it just takes the introduction of a little sin to bring great compromise. It just takes the introduction of a little false doctrine, a little heresy, to upset the purity of the Word of God being spoken in a particular place. We need to be mindful of that. And the final principle here is that folly demonstrates itself by gravitating toward wrong and refusing to be corrected through wise counsel. That folly demonstrates itself by gravitating toward the wrong and refusing to be corrected by wise counsel. In another part of this particular book, Solomon talks about seeking out one's own devices. Typically, when we seek out that which is worldly, it may have an immediate consequence that we might even think is good, but will not stand the test of time and does not further necessarily God's kingdom or his purposes. We, left to our own self, will always gravitate toward that which is wrong. Thus, when we come into relationship with Jesus, being given a new nature, and we operate under a different spirit, and we operate under the authorities of a different king, we learn not to move toward that which is unhealthy, but to embrace that which is healthy. We learn that what was once an attraction to sin is now an abhorrence of sin. I love this book. It's just been such a delight to sit with you for these many sessions, and we'll continue as we get back together again too soon in the 10th chapter of the book of Ecclesiastes.